We're going to run a video right now, and then we're going to talk a little bit with Anthony Brown. Or I'll just
Breaking new music did not used to be this hard.
Oh, sorry.
Managing these influencers takes all my time. I'm supposed to be moving culture. I fill out spreadsheets. I just want to love my job.
Well, that's depressing. Dude.
You gotta get on Breakr.
Breakr handles all of this for you. See, Breakr uses AI to match you, the label, with the top talent agencies and influencers, me. So why are you paying 40% to dispatch agencies and DM diving on TikTok and Instagram when you can instantly connect with over 50 million creators with just a click?
Hey, are Sophia's campaign posts live yet?
Let's check with Breakr. Streaming is looking good, 15 posts, 2 million views, and thousands of creates. Now that you have Breakr, in just a few clicks, you can start filling the freaking internet with culturally driven, impactful content from top talent. Automated seamlessly for all your campaigns, inside of Breakr or outside, run by your favorite creative agencies. Break faster together on Breakr.
All right, so Tony, you sit at the intersection of everything we're talking about here. You guys can applaud, thank you. It's creators, it's music, it's AI. Talk about what you're doing and where, talk about how you help musicians, I guess.
Yeah,
first.
I mean, look, 10, 15 years ago when all these platforms were becoming born, the only way that you can push capital to the ecosystem to get content out there was by agencies. That presents a lot of challenges in 2024. There's so many platforms like BandLab and all these AI platforms that exist. But if all of that data is captured in agencies and Excel spreadsheets and emails, the music industry can't really systematize and operationalize the learnings that typical industries do. So Breakr said, hey, let's dissect this thing into its core components. Payments. Anybody who's worked with Universal Music Group, Sony, Warner, you know that you actually have to register a creator as a vendor every single time you want to pay them. These trends move so fast that if you were required to actually build a relationship with them and get them into the system and pay them 60 days later, you may lose the trend. And so Breakr said, hey, what does it look like for all of these record labels who are pummeling hundreds of millions of dollars a year into the ecosystem to own those relationships, use one single vendor wallet inside of Breakr and pay global. So Capitol, Interscope, Epic, Def Jam, Republic, all of these flagship US labels are now uploading funds into the cloud and then using our global search and discovery system to be able to weaponize content globally.
So how do they do that weaponization? So they upload it all, but then what do you guys do to allow them to help break music? Breakr, I guess, that's where the Breakr comes from, and other things.
Yeah, I'll give you a good example. So Republic came to us 2 weeks ago, and they had a really cool K-pop act out of Korea. And they were in town in LA, and they wanted to do a meetup. So it's okay, how do we leverage the search and discovery system to be able to actually find K-pop type influencers who actually naturally and authentically relate to this type of artist and create those authentic moments? And then the flip was that they had a sound that they wanted to push, and we got all of them together, we did a really unique content, and we got it done within 72 hours. Our AI has the ability to be able to detect not only where those creators live and what affinities they have, but they actually have the ability to understand where their audiences live. So just because a kid lives in LA and plays in the K-pop scene, maybe all of their people are in Paris, right? It's so right now with agencies, you typically are dependent on the roster. And so because of Breakr, you now have the ability to see where people's actual core audience is and use that to be able to target. A good example of it, J-Lo through the BMG, she's recently signed with BMG. We did the recent campaign that she launched on her album. And she wanted to tap Latinx influencers in the New York area. If you typically had to go to an agency to do that, that would be a nightmare task. They came into Breakr, they took the Puerto Rican flag, put it by high growth creators in the New York area. Within a week or two, we did one of the most powerful campaigns we did. And we gave that tool to the label. We don't charge any seat fees. And because we just give all of that technology away and we solve all of these administrative problems, the platform's just growing massively month over month, and we believe that we're the future evolution of the agency where even if you have people that you believe are creative and have a pulse on culture, with our roles and permissions feature globally now you can invite those agencies into the network to be able to operate on your behalf. The best version of Breakr is one that we're not actually the ones that are pushing the music. It's that we've given the teams like a Capitol and an Interscope who actually want to build their own internal agencies the ability to have the Iron Man suit or Iron Woman suit Or it's like, if you're Red Bull Records where you don't have a full-time staff to be able to like do influencer marketing full-time, that we can connect you with agencies that we trust that are culturally relevant using our infrastructure. So Breakr just wants to be an operating system for the music industry.
Right, and sitting in between. So in the J-Lo example, she found all these creators, Latinx creators, in the New York City area, and then they helped promote her songs.
Yeah.
And would they create with custom music? I mean, is there custom ability there, or is it really just pushing it out and hoping it happens?
No. So it's very targeted. So every time that someone comes into the platform, they have a creative brief in mind, right? Mm-hmm. And so they come in, they set the brief. You can send up to 1,000 offers at one time in Breakr. Historically, those were emails. Those are hitting up 100 different agencies. That's crazy. And then there's dispatch agencies who we all know their names. They sit on top of these talent agencies and charge 40%. And so Breakr said, if we could build a global network of talent agencies, if we could build an underlayer of curators, and then we could give all of the consumer data for these creators, what does that look like? Like, how does that push the envelope? And we're now starting to use AI to go to the Def Jams of the world and the Epics of the world and actually studying their data and saying, hey, here's all the past campaigns, whether you ran it in Breakr or not, here's how you're spending. There are certain artists, it makes 0 sense to spend creator dollars on them. There are some artists that are a complete math formula where it does. Historically, because it's all in PDFs and Excel spreadsheets, you haven't been able to even understand those dynamics. And so we believe that in a world where if you spend $100 million on Meta, or on YouTube, or on Snap, and any of these powerful digital platforms, you actually get insights and learnings. When you spend $100 million on creators, unfortunately, there's no institutional learnings. And so if we can solve the fundamental administrative barriers that stop consolidation, we don't even know what Breakr can be or what music promotion can be through creators in 5 years with the power of AI. And so, we removed all procurement barriers. So we said, hey, come on. We sat with Capital, we played that video. They were like, yeah, that's a trigger warning because this is so accurate to the pains of doing these global campaigns. But they got 25 seats immediately the next day, and we had never met them before. So to me, that's product market fit. And I believe that we're actually scratching a nerve that people actually do want to digitize their operations on the creator side. And brands, by the way, figured this out a long time ago. The music industry historically, on the creator side, just didn't lean heavily into digitizing their infrastructure because I think it was a capacity issue. But when you get tons of agencies and you get tons of infrastructure and data, I think something is emerging. When we walk into meetings, we usually don't not close. Yep. And that's a good feeling.
Yeah, that's good. So you talked about the side of, you have labels, you have music professionals, you've got a lot of creators on the other side. Yeah. What about brands? Because you work with brands too. How do brands take advantage of the infrastructure you've built?
So there's twofold. We sat with the head of innovation at one of the biggest global brands last week, one of the biggest CPG advertisers. And we were going through the platform. They're like, respectfully, the reason that you guys are unique is because of your musical connection. So they said, what about a world where we are able to integrate into the releases of these major global artists, right? So historically, rights management and securing the ability to use sounds was actually a big issue for brands. So it actually stops them from using a Post Malone the day of release. You typically have to go back and forth with management, with the sync departments. They were like, what does it look like to put $100,000 into creators' hands? We'll use the sound. Just let us organically use it in the wild. So Breakr, I think, is going to be a powerful conduit to major brands that are looking to integrate into releases that haven't even happened yet. And so I believe that our cultural start in music is actually the thing that will draw brands into us. The second piece, which I think is massively scalable, most of the big influencer platforms that have already existed and proliferated, their IP and their code bases aren't very flexible. Breakr's so nascent and so new that what does it look like to build another version of Breakr in an alternative industry like beauty, right? And so what we're doing now is working with consortia and different brands and publishers that want to build their own version of Breakr but don't have the internal know-how to be able to build what cost us $9 million platform and just stripping it of all Breakr branding and then just giving it to them like Shopify. So we would just be literally a payments infrastructure and a platform at that point, not anything even related close to the agency because they would be handling the human component. To me, that's a $100 billion event when you start to think about how many payments are flowing to creators globally.
Absolutely. You talked a little bit about culture and growing culture, and culture starts on TikTok, according to TikTok, but
It does.
what if TikTok,
Don't let Meta hear that.
what if TikTok comes to an end in the US? How does that change your business model?
You know, it was crazy. Obviously, I went through all the stages of grief when I saw Sir Lucian Grange bumping heads with TikTok, but I thought he was right. I thought that, ultimately it was really important to fight for artists, and just like it was important for TikTok to fight for what they stand for. So we were a neutral party. Our business doubled, though, when that happened.
Wow.
Counterintuitive. Breakr's platform agnostic. So you had labels like Republic coming in and pouring into YouTube, pouring into Reels, and because we indexed the entire creator economy, we didn't care. And so we were picking up a lot of Instagram business, and it was our time to show the market what platform agnostic looks like. There are agencies, if that was your go-to market strategy, that are dependent on TikTok. I have a 98% deliverability on every email that I send, well, not me, but the platform that we send globally. Right, not definitely.
I can see you pushing the buttons and sending email over there. Yeah, it's all him.
Like the Wizard of Oz back there, but no, it helped us actually. And now that it's back, now people are using us in a very diversified way. Whereas I would say TikTok was about 75% of our transact. We've done almost 14,000 campaigns in like 4 years. So it was like 75% was towards TikTok, but now I think it's going to be a little bit more mixed.
So since you are working across all these different platforms, give us a little bit of a sense of which one you think, if TikTok were banned in the US, which ones would benefit the most?
The obvious one is Reels.
Yep.
I think that they have figured out the closest to the serendipity at scale that TikTok has figured out. But I think the one that's the one that everyone's kind of sleeping on actually, I think, is YouTube. YouTube Shorts, I think, is one of the most underrated platforms for short form content in the context of music promotion. First of all, that music team really cares about getting this right? And I think it can be understated that the quality of the music team at the platforms shows the intentionality of it. So when they know these major artists are coming, they're reaching out, they're getting on the phone, they're figuring out ways to be able to be helpful. I think YouTube Shorts will be the ultimate white horse or dark. What is it?
Dark horse. I think dark horse.
Yeah, dark horse.
Whatever.
I'm the only black dude. I said white horse.
Yeah, sorry. Only white people can say dark horse, so there you go. What about Snap, though? I mean, I'm seeing Snap sort of leaning in a number of different ways. We actually have Saket here from Snap later today.
I think Snap is amazing. I think they launched 2 partnerships last week, and I hope the third is with Breakr if they're listening. But they have an API now that's public facing. I think that people can't underestimate how important those API partnerships are. I just think TikTok and Reels and YouTube got a little bit ahead of it. So now that Snap is coming into the market to let the API available to platforms like Breakr and Grin and CreatorIQ and Influential, I think they're going to catch right back up into everyone else in terms of like campaigns. Because Spotlight is similar to what I said about a music team that cares. Yep. Like they really want Spotlight to win and they want market share. So I think that it's less of desire on the Snapchat side and it's more of the functionality into all the distribution nodes like Breakr and all these other platforms. And in the music space, Snapchat, if you're listening, there's not many people who have the penetration plus the human element as Breakr.
Yeah, hey, this just came to mind, but the UMG TikTok spat that just ended, did that affect you at all?
No, the business like literally doubled because of Reels and YouTube
right,
Shorts.
because of everything else there.
Yeah.
And short form in general, you're bullish, right?
Super bullish, but I think the Ben Labs founder Ricky, yeah, he made a very powerful point. Streamers if you guys were following the Drake and Kendrick beef, you saw long form content was really actually the primary engine. Typically we did a lot of marketing on some of these records. I can't say the ones, but the short form content was cool, but it was actually the streamers on YouTube that were actually keeping consumers up to date in real time and what's going on. So to me, that type of content creator really showed where the conversation goes. Yep. And I think long form content will always have a piece in the landscape.
So let's talk a little bit about AI. We'll shift a little bit in the last couple minutes we have and talk about AI and how it's adapting both what you're doing in the industry. So starting with you said you're using AI, leaning in to find creators and do that. So how are you using it today and how do you think it'll change in the next couple of years?
So I think it's 3 things. One, less obvious. Well, I'll start with the super obvious. So right now for Breakr, because we've indexed the entire creator economy, the first thing that we're bare tackling is recommendations in the context of music. Right? So every single label that comes into the Breakr workstation gets and this was actually a shout out to UMG. 3 years ago, this is before the AI craze, they told us if you guys go down this path of digitizing this platform, you need to make it a single tenant environment, meaning that the data learning that occurs within our workstations that we're spending into needs to be our data. So that was a core product thesis for us. Now, because of that, we're able to now apply AI to every single workstation within a group cluster of labels, right? So we could do it at the capital level. We can then say, hey, we could do it at the UMG level. We're training those data sets on the recommendation side. So we're looking at all the past campaigns, even if you never ran it in Breakr. We're understanding like the composition of your roster. We're studying the performance of past campaigns. We're seeing what types of creators work with what type of artists, and we're building a proprietary first-party data set powered by OpenAI and all of these like scaffoldings that exist. So that's one. They love that because that means all you have to do literally is give us the data and use it, and it just gets smarter over time. So that's the first one on recommendations. When I met with Ricky, and I think he's right. I think that being able to actually analyze the content and know exactly what a post is going to do or not do in advance, I think is the second level for Breakr. Right now, is like if a tool like that existed in a standalone way, maybe it gets adopted, but like I actually think in the context of an operating system, us being able to say, hey, whoa, Republic, before you press go on this campaign, actually we think this is a 50% chance of like not doing that well. These 5 creators need to try again, right? Our system being able to automatically do that is crazy. That's such a value add to marketing departments. And the third piece I think is like, if it works for creator content, what does it do for artist content? So, I told you I managed this kid, Charlie, on a Friday. Yep. His, when I met the kid, he had about 300 followers on Instagram. He has about 2.8 million now on TikTok, 790,000 on Instagram, 2 million subscribers, I think, on YouTube, 1 billion streams globally, 2 platinum records, signed to Universal Music Group, right? Now, I, as Breakr, cannot take full credit for that. It was probably like 40%, 30% behind the scenes, but every single time we were effective with him, it was actually driven by his content. Yep. And I think that anyone who's honest with themselves in terms of breaking an artist and like going from obscurity to nascent to emerging to domestic to global, it's actually coming from their page. And so about AI and what Ricky is building, I think it's fascinating because it's like if the artists before they upload to TikTok can get some feedback at scale, oh man, that will have a direct implication in terms of like artist success. And then platforms like Breakr can really shine because as soon as we start to see noise, we know what region is coming from, we know what type of consumers are interacting with it. We've actually put Spotify streaming, because we're not like a brand platform, we like go deep in music. We're now bringing song stats inside of Breakr. So we're getting streaming data in real time. We know where all the creators are. So I think AI being able to help artist content as well as recommendations of like what's happening in real time is the future.
Yeah, well, what do you think about, where the AI replacing creators, replacing musicians? We've got Studio, we've got Udio, Sumo, whatever, the Suno. We've got Drake and Snoop and Tupac and, the freestyle track. It's a kind of a brave new world out there. How do you see that developing?
Yeah, I think 2 things. One, I think the CEO of Southeast Asia, Cliff?
Yeah.
I thought he made a great point. I think that consumer tastes are going to rise in the sense that what we expect as quality is going to go up. So the more people that come in, there's going to be a baseline that everything expects, and then the people who supersede that through creativity will always shine. I think that the volume that is coming from that makes platforms like Breakr more important because it's like you have to get it right actually on the marketing side to be able to survive the tsunami of content that comes in on a daily basis. So it's a net positive for us, I think. And then I think in terms of like, it's just not going anywhere, right? And so when you start to think about AI Drakes, I'll give you a positive example of it. There was a kid out of Canada, he works with my friend Matt Dubois. He did a weekend AI rendered version of a song, went nuclear on TikTok. The Weeknd came in, said, yo, this is amazing. He co-signed it. Song went more crazy. Kid got signed.
Wow.
Right? And so that's like a positive use case. My friend manages Grimes. And, I think that what she's saying is like, hey, I'm not going to fight innovation. I'm just going to just go ahead and give the rights out.
Right, yeah, Grimes did that. That was pretty cool, right?
She's like, I'm not going to fight innovation. I'm just going to go ahead and give it out and allow you to, like, do it at scale. So I think that innovation's here, but the ethics of it and how thoughtful you are around it is what's going to be most important. But we've seen that you can't beat technology, right? Like,
Right.
and so I think that you have to be able to work with it in a thoughtful way. And I think the music industry has really been doing a good job of standing up for itself in this new wave of innovation. And I think that them being firm, having such a massive catalog of business, having the hearts and minds of billions of consumers, plus these platforms, I think that a healthy tension there is good. And I do believe that the public sector is eventually going to have to actually step in and call balls and strikes on some of this stuff, but I don't think it's going anywhere.
Yeah, you can't beat technology. You got to learn how to live with it is probably the quote of this session. Last question for you. Who's a breakout creator or musician that you're keeping your eye on that we should all keep our eyes or ears on?
So there's this girl named Samaria Stewart. Okay?
Samaria Stewart.
And she's from Compton, California, black girl. And she has set some of the biggest trends that you have seen from a dancing perspective over the past 3 years, from The Baby to, so many big artists out of the LA area. And she's now transitioning to making music. And so her whole go-to-market strategy is taking that same authenticity that she was able to do as a dancer and then bringing that energy and rallying the community around her. And so we're super bullish on her. She has like 30,000, 40,000 followers, so she's still a micro creator. But she's amazing. And then to switch to like pure play creator, there's this girl named Jasmine Jackson out of Chicago. And she's an early YouTuber, was very dominant in that, and then transitioned over to Instagram. 25% engagement.
Wow.
And she built this brand called J Sculpt Fitness. So basically it's a waist trainer. And as a creator, she was smart enough to know that I don't need to go partner with a brand like that. I just need to be a fitness influencer and promote it myself. She owns a 17,000 square foot factory in Chicago. She's pumping out almost like $18 million in the past 4 or 5 years. And so I think you're gonna start seeing more of these standalone creators that say, whoa. Like, I'm gonna build my own audience and I'm gonna build the infrastructure to directly interact with my consumers. So
Cool.
super
Anthony
excited.
Brown, Breakr, great having you on stage. Great to hear this.